Why do we need to fight one another? This question echoes through the ruins of empires and across the polarized battlefield of today's digital discourse. In a world that calls itself civilized, enlightened, and evolved, why does the need for conflict still live inside us? Why do cultures that build cathedrals and universities also build weapons, armies, and prisons? And why, even in peaceful times, do people create enemies in daily life? The answer, as unsettling as it may be, is this: war is not an anomaly. It's a reflection of something ancient, something within. It's not just about politics, territory, or resources. War is the manifestation of a deeper psychic tension that resides in the human mind. From prehistoric tribal raids to modern ideological battles online, the battlefield may change, but the impulse behind it remains hauntingly familiar. This video is a psychological excavation. Together, we will explore war not as an event, but as a symptom of something unconscious and unresolved. Drawing from thinkers like Carl Jung, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Michel Foucault, we'll see how fear, repression, and projection continue to shape how we see the other. Because the truth is, before war begins with weapons, it begins in the mind with a narrative, an image, a fear. And if we don't understand the mind's role in conflict, we will keep repeating the same destructive cycles over and over again. So the real question is not just why do we fight, but rather can we ever stop? The ancient origins of conflict for decades, the idea of the noble savage persisted. That early humans lived in peace and civilization brought corruption and war. But archaeological evidence paints a different picture. Lawrence Keeley, in War Before Civilization, shows that prehistoric life was far from peaceful. Trenches, walls, and weapons surrounded early Neolithic villages. Mass graves show signs of brutal attacks and violent deaths. Keeley's research suggests that violence wasn't rare. In fact, prehistoric societies had higher death rates from war than many modern industrial ones. So war is not just political, it's psychological, even biological, a survival mechanism, yes, but also something deeper. Pierre Clastres proposed an intriguing idea. In some indigenous cultures, war prevented the centralization of power. It kept tyranny in check. War wasn't just about resources. It was a tool for balance, a dark paradox of social stability. So from the very beginning, conflict wasn't imposed from outside. It arose from within, from needs, instincts, and unresolved psychic energies. Philosophy, psychology, and the inner battlefield philosophers have long tried to understand this impulse. Hobbes saw man as a wolf, to man naturally violent and fearful. Without laws or order, Hobbes argued, humanity would tear itself apart in a war of all against all. Rousseau, on the other hand, believed primitive man was peaceful. It was property, hierarchy, and inequality that introduced conflict into human life. But even Rousseau saw how quickly this desire for dominance takes root. Once awakened, it grows, infecting hearts and minds. Freud took the question further, deep into the unconscious. He believed we all carry a death drive, a compulsion toward destruction. Civilization, said Freud, is a fragile barrier. It represses these impulses, but can never fully dissolve them. So when pressure builds economically, socially, emotionally, that drive erupts in aggression, war, or hatred of the other. Carl Jung offered perhaps the most transformative insight, that every human being carries a shadow of the rejected, hidden part of the psyche. The more we deny it, the stronger it becomes. And eventually, we project that darkness onto someone else. That someone becomes the enemy. And suddenly, we're not just fighting them, we're fighting our own reflection. The projection of the shadow projection is not a flaw, it's an inevitable defense. When we deny our fears, envy, or anger, we unconsciously assign them to others. The enemy, then, is not always real. They are a psychic construction built from everything we refuse to admit about ourselves. Entire societies fall into this trap. They begin to see another group, a nation, a religion as the embodiment of evil. Nietzsche warned of this in On the Genealogy of Morals, that much of morality rises not from virtue, but from resentment. The powerless, unable to confront their own darkness, elevate themselves morally by condemning the evil other. This is an abstract theory. History is drenched in the blood spilled by projected shadows. Propaganda transforms neighbors into traitors, humans into animals. Every genocide is preceded by language words that dehumanize and divide. And today, the process continues digitally accelerated. Algorithms reward outrage. Moral language becomes weaponized. Every online debate becomes a moral war. We're right, they're wrong. No middle ground. And in that polarization, empathy dies. The other becomes an object, not a person, but a threat. Leaders, knowingly or not, exploit this. They channel collective shadow into hatred, unifying their base through fear. It's not just war, it's narrative warfare. Constructed enemies justify authoritarianism, violence, and exclusion. Symbolic war and the battle within, even in peacetime, war doesn't vanish. It mutates into symbolic forms, into rivalries, humiliation, and power games. At work, it becomes competition and sabotage. At home, it's control, guilt, and emotional warfare. In relationships, we fight to win, not to understand. And on social media, every disagreement is a battle for moral superiority. This symbolic war is exhausting. It corrodes our bonds and isolates us even from ourselves. Because the enemy is not just external. It is the part of us we refuse to acknowledge. So long as the shadow remains unconscious, we will continue to fight and believe we are justified in doing so. The path of integration, Carl Jung said, what does not become conscious manifests as fate, and our collective fate has been shaped by wars internal and external. The first step to transformation is recognition, not just of society's shadow, but our own. Our anger, our need to dominate, our secret envy, these must be brought into the light, not repressed. This process requires courage, to look at ourselves honestly, to admit we are not purely good, but it also frees us. When we integrate the shadow, we stop needing enemies to carry it for us. We can see others not as threats, but as mirrors, human beings just as contradictory as we are. This is not weakness. It is the beginning of true power, the power of consciousness. From personal practice to cultural shift, but this cannot be an individual journey alone. Culture must change too. Education, media, politics all must question their narratives. Do they promote understanding or deepen division? We need new ethics of coexistence, new ways to speak, to teach, to resolve. Peace education, emotional intelligence, open dialogue. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. Every small act matters. Listening before judging, pausing before reacting, offering kindness instead of condemnation. No, we may never eliminate conflict entirely, but we can learn to deal with it consciously, maturely, humanely. Because where there is consciousness, there is no need for war.